Salakia got cut off. So we're gonna start here. We're gonna go to Micah 2 and 1. It says, it's Micah 2 and 1. It says, woe unto them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because the power is in their hand. Who's the power? At be it right now is Esau, Edom, man. You got these different devils, and these different CEO, FBI, position of power where they're able to move the law to where, righteousness is instilled in earth. But what do? They continue to, corporate thug and, they do these things and push out vibrations and push out psyops, right? To, keep you from the truth of the matter, really to hide their own sins, man. You know, It says, verse 2, it says, "In covet fields and take them by violence and houses and take them away, so that they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage." And, you see that with, the mortgage, you're saying you buy a house, then you end up paying more on the house than what you originally signed up for because of, the interest on the house goes up or, the value of the house starts to go down and you end up having to pay more, whether it be into the insurance of keeping the home through the bank, right? Or the city, eminent domain. You're gonna have to, you end up having to move that place, that house out of the area where the city considers it, a hazard. And these things happen all over the neighborhood. These things been happening with gentrification. The laws are pretty much corrupted through all of Jake's neighborhoods, and just neighborhoods where they don't want Jake's. And when Jake moves into nicer neighborhoods, they do the same thing. So it's really you in a rat race, man. And in verse 3, it says, therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family, which is Esau, Edom, do I devise an evil. It says, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go heartily, for the time is evil, man. So let me get this guy here. Um, he says the former CEO of this is just trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking victims, man. These are all CEOs, you know. These are CEOs. These are your in your Congress, your congressmen. These are your police chiefs, right? These are all these people in power that actually go out and pretty much, and who are these people? Predominantly so-called white men, that go out and they cause these things. They're terrified. They're terrorizers amongst the world, you know, and they use their money. They use their money. They use their influence of the media, right? They use psyops through the media, paid off propaganda, all of these things, man, to ensure their own enterprises, but which is all under one agenda, man. It's all under the devil's agenda, and this is now it's starting to come out because the devil don't mind getting rid of his own in order for his agenda to be forwarded, man. He don't mind fucking up, taking out his own people. This is a former CEO of Abercrombie. This is old, but it's still relevant to the day, man. Because a lot of things going to come out, man. When the Lord fully lifts up that skirt, you're gonna see these devils already showing you their colors, but you're gonna see how they truly feel, how they truly are. The more we get down to Jacob's trouble, they're gonna show you the devils that they are. They're gonna show you how much devilish and how truly evil these motherfuckers are, man. So for anybody to be putting their hope into this devil and this government any kind of fucking way, you're wrong. It says former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch and the other two individuals charged with sex trafficking and interstate prostitution. It said defendants allegedly arranged dozens of men to travel to New York hotels around the world for sex events. And this is the things. This is what Mr. Epstein, he had a private island, right? This is what he was getting. Pretty much this is all his accusations, out there on that island with Mr. Trump, But see, it's all good, when they able to point the finger at you and steal your data and say that you the problem for certain things that they implemented into the world to try to hide their own sins. But when you point the finger at them, you see how really wicked they are. You know, most Jake want to do is just, I ain't gonna say that, man. That's fucking. That's not. It's not conducive. But anyways, it says defendants. Let's keep reading. It says a 16 count indictment was unsealed today at a federal court. It says in Central, Islip changing the former Abercrombie and Fitch CO Abercrombie Chief Executive Officer Michael Jeffries, along with Michael Smith and James Jacobson, with sex trafficking and engaging in interstate prostitution. So they had this going on through, several. There's no telling how many different hotels this was actually, influencing. That's why I say, man, you in the fourth wall. Once you break that fourth wall of America, you know, you never know. It's in plain sight. A lot of trafficking, a lot of evil be in plain sight. We don't have the power to do it. We supposed to leave that to the laws, to the powers that be. This ain't our world. This isn't our time. You know, so we just letting you know that the world you live in is rooted in wickedness. You're not in a regular world. And this is your everyday life. When you go buy your food, you eat your McDonald's. That's human meat. You eating human meat and you eating processed GMO meat, man, all stabbed together, man. You know what I'm saying? And then a lot of this meat. There was an article that went out a couple years ago that I remember looking into. A lot of meat that Bill Gates was getting into was from these different, you know, manufacturers, because they were running low on beef and they was running low on certain meats. So they was just mixing a lot of meats together. And a lot of this meat that they was mixing together was tainted. It was spoiled, man. So you eating that McDonald's and you eating, foods and you eat fast food because, ain't nothing supposed to be just fast as a process to food, man. But you doing that, you got the parasites in your body, man. That's why you're not supposed to be eating fast food. It's time to really start putting your foot down. Learn how to cook your own food, and not only will it last longer, you will have a way healthier body cooking your own food. But Jake, you know, they love their oppressor, so it is what it is. Tainted by the flesh. And a lot of these people. Let's go back here. A lot of these people be in church. Let's look up some more incidences, man. It says, and this is I just typed in church pastors accused of trafficking, man. And these supposed to be, your religious leaders, Christian faith, so on and so forth, right? But nobody's bringing these things out. This is like at all time high. It says recent cases within the last year have involved pastors and religious leaders from various different denominations and organizations who are accused of sex trafficking, child exploitation. That's a big one. Child exploitation and forced labor schemes. They like to make the Israelites, and I ain't gonna lie, there's a lot of fake ass Israelites out there. They set up by the government, but that ain't us, you know. But see, that's what I'm saying. You're gonna have to remain in your integrity in these times, brothers and sisters, because they watching you. They watching everything. They trying to make you an offender for a word. They can't find nothing on us that we're doing that's illegal, you know. So you just can maintain in the word, maintaining your faith and continue, man. You know, like I said in my last video, don't let your sins weigh you down. Anyways, sex trafficking and exploitation says Harvard Christian Fellowship, Riverdale, California. It says in September 2025, it says former pastor and missionary Paul Havsgard, sound like a fucking, anyways, was accused in lawsuits, sexually abusing and trafficking dozens of children at a shelter in Bucharest, Romania. You see, and this is going on all over the world, man. You see, they set up their enterprises so they can continue themselves in wickedness, man. Let's get that book real quick. Hold on. This is what Job was talking about. You know, this is them trying to want to continue in their enterprises and not be, condemned. But see, the Lord is condemning you. It's not even us. It's the Spirit. And see, these top elite devils know that. So it's Job 5 and 12 says he disappointed the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. Verse 13, he says, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. Verse 2, verse 14 said they meet in dark with darkness in the daytime, and they grope in the noonday as at night. But he that saveth, verse 15, but he that saveth the poor from the sword, from their mouth, but he saveth the poor from the sword, from their mouth, and from the hand of the mighty man. So the Lord is the reason why we are still, operating how we're operating, because you best believe they are watching you. It's not you, it's of the Lord. The Lord said he will give you a mouth, and words to speak that not your adversaries can gainsay nor resist, you know, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you a offender for a word. But see, that's the thing when you hold on. That's the thing when you put on this cup of suffering, man, that the Lord said put on, and you follow His example. It's not going to matter what they do, or what they come with. The Lord said, "No weapon formed against you is going to prosper," and these are devices of the wicked. This is them trying to complete their own enterprise. Isaiah 29:21. Let's start at verse 20. It says, "For the terrible one is brought to naught." Who's the terrible one? Esau, Edom, the wicked. It says, and is the so-called white man, the self-proclaimed white man and authority of the world today, ruling and reigning in wickedness. It says, "And the scorner is consumed." It says, "And all that watch for iniquity are cut off." Man, let's read that out of NLT. It says, "The scoffer will be gone, the arrogant will disappear, and those who plot evil will be killed." Man, and see, this is them. They set up these wicked enterprises to be able to continue the evil. And the Lord is cutting that off. He's making it known, through his prophets, first and foremost, to those that are listening. But also, he's just pulling up the skirt more and more. And Jake is going to find out that who this man really is and how he really gets down. Verse 21. So I'll give you a second. All right, slot for that. But yeah, Jake is going to find out who this man is more and more, and see what he's trying to do is he's trying to remove us from the word. He's trying to remove us from being able to preach his word because we were calling out all this wickedness. We're calling out, the atrocities of the earth, man, and that's a big one. It says they make a man an offender for the word, and that's why we don't. A lot of you Christians, man, we don't like you. Stay the fuck away from us, man, because you embedded in wickedness. You secretly in these fucking Masonic groups, you in these different cults with this devil. You can get hoops with them. That's why a lot of you take them 501c3 C4s. You know, you go into working with these motherfuckers, man. And that was these when you read about the Cold War, you read about the church programs that was going on, these different church organizations. A lot of them was embedded with, well, I wouldn't say embedded, but a lot of them was helping out FBI agents and was helping out, CIA agents and destroying. They claim they wanted to help the community, but they was really destroying the community. And this was in a neighborhood near you. Why do you think they put a liquor store? That's infrastructure, Jake. A liquor store, a fucking crime, a liquor store. First they redlined the areas, but crime, a liquor store. You know what I'm saying? Maybe a little. They be nice a little bit. They give you a little beauty shop, beauty store with wigs and shit. You can go in there and get right next, all in the same vicinity of the church. That's the infrastructure, Jake, because it keeps us in that perpetual, not we don't have a rulership mentality. It's only when you come up out of that world you really see these people for who they are. They're really not that damn holy, man. And the Lord, what the Lord is gonna do for us is gonna over exceed anything that they fucking are, anything they think they are, man. Verse 21, continue on. They make a man offender. They make a man an offender for a word, and they lay a snare for him that reproveth at the gate. And that's even our own people, because they in bed with these devils too. Believe it or not, that's a lot of Israelites, man, in bed with this devil too. That's why I said judgment gonna start with those that know they Israelites and not. Continuing on, it says, and they turn aside the just for not, man. And let's read this out in NLT. Verse 21, it says, "Those who convict the innocent by their false testimony will disappear." It says, "And a similar fate await those who use trickery to pervert justice and who tell lies to destroy the innocent," man. Verse 22, "That is why the Lord who redeemed Abraham says to the people of Israel, my people will no longer be ashamed or turn pale with fear," man. And this is what we putting on that cup, man. You got to put on Yahweh Shah, man. Understand what Yahweh Shah was going up against, right? Being strong for each other, loving one another. He was going up against, powers at the Roman Empire. You understand? They wanted to kill him. He asked the father, it's time he knelt to the father, he asked him, you can't take this cup away from me. He got irritated, telling, Peter and John, like, wake up, you know, wake up, unless you fall into temptation too. It was one of the things where he was getting irritated because he knew what he had to go through. Just like we know what we're coming into, what most of us are going to have to go through if you in the know, man. Then you want to La Luz Del Mundo Mega Church, a family who has led this Mexico-based church for generations, accused of the use of organizing for massive sex trafficking and conspiracy against women and children across multiple countries. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've traveled to South America, and man, it is crazy out there, man. When the sex trafficking is like, when the women are beautiful, yes, but like in your face, you will never know what's going on until you actually, unless you in the know. It's man, it's a mess, man. You know, when I was down there, I wasn't on none of that, to be honest with you. I tried to stay to myself, and really, I was learning. Whenever I went and traveled, I was trying to find, I was seeking knowledge, not just with the world that I live in, but within myself. But it ain't about me. This is about these different devils that's out here, that's in these different countries promoting this shit, that have organization, that have CEOs, and all of them are connected to the same banks, man. So they all in cahoots together. That's why they try to, these different mobs and all this shit, man. They all a part of the federal government's the biggest mob. Look, Catholic Church, Texas. This is recent too. Former Trump spiritual advisor, 2000 March 2025. Opus Dei, Argentina. July 2025. It was recent as hell, man. All these are all recent crimes, man. And at the end of the day, that's because the Lord is lifting up the skirt of Babylon. Hold on, let me get that real quick. It should be in what is that? What is that? Zechariah. I think it is. Let's see. Might be Zechariah 8. No, it's not. Well, I can't think of that verse that I'm looking for right now. But the Lord did say he was going to, expose the nations. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to this verse instead. We're gonna go to Isaiah 32. And we're gonna start at verse 7. It says the instrument of the churl. Let's get that word for churl real quick, man. The instruments of the churl.
Strong's H 3596. Kilai. Second entry. Kalai.
Kayalala. So it says a scoundrel, knave, right? And that's what this Esau Edoms get the root word of that. Scoundrel, knave, to seize, to contain, calculate, measure. And we know this devil does a diligent search in his wickedness, man. Excuse me, to complete his enterprises. Let's read this out of NL. Let's jump to the NLT now. It says it's Isaiah 32:7. The smooth tricks of the scoundrels are evil. They plot crooked schemes. They lie to convict the poor. It says even when the cause of the poor is just. All Jake really out here is trying to do is just trying to eat, survive, and get to the next day. But see, they don't understand. And this is where I believe a lot of Jakes is going to come into the truth, because we're entering into the time of the axe. a lot of wicked Israelites are going to be weeded out, and a lot of righteous Jakes are going to be restored, man. But that's for the Lord. I'm a firm believer in that, man. Verse 32, where Isaiah 32:8, man. That's even you brothers and sisters that are new that's coming in here. The Lord is still dealing with you too, no matter if you've just been in this for a year, 2 years, or whatever. All right, it's a lot, man. Try to do a lot of things at once these days. Isaiah 32 and 8. It says, "But generous people who plan to do what is generous, and they stand firm in their generosity." Right? Hold on. Because that's really, you see a lot of that in Jake. Jake is really a people of love. Our people are obviously 2/3 of us are fucking monsters, man. They just meant planet, but they meant to go into the fire because they not only are they, they're not going to listen, they're not going to take heed. It's just a sense of arrogancy and pride, that's not being rooted out of them. Most of it has to do with them being raised by a woman, man. They got that woman, that female, like the Apostle Rakah, the elder Apostle Rakah talks about, that so-called black, big Shirley spirit is on a lot of Jakes, man. You got a lot of big, bulky ass niggas, man, walking around with, female mentality, man, emotional nigga mentality, and a lot of these niggas gonna be put down, bro. It is what it is. You can't. This ain't for the weak minded. It ain't for the weak minded, and it ain't for the arrogant in pride or in might. This is for the hopeful elect, man. The elect are gonna do. If you are the elect, you're gonna know what to do. You know what it is, man. You know what the dangers are out here. But at the end of the day, you got to put on that cup of suffering. Verse 9, it said, "Listen up, you women that are at ease. Listen to me, you who are smug." Because a lot of women are involved into a lot of these trafficking cases too. It's where you get, a pimp. He'll have what? He'll have a mistress, a head mistress that's allowing all this shit to go on in the church, or that's allowing this shit to go on, whether it be in certain strip clubs or certain bars. You seen it in Vietnam, with the different soldiers that was going up there and they was taking these, having babies by these women and then leaving them behind, man. It's we live in a wicked fucking world, man. Verse 10. It says, in a short time, just a little more than a year, you careless ones will suddenly begin to care. Your fruit crops will fail. In the harvest will never take place. So, all the little, mock and scoffing, it was a little short time. We seeing it starting to happen now. You know, all the mocking and scoffing of the prophet's gonna cease. All the little shit that that's going on in the church right now is gonna be broken up. All camps, everything is gonna be broken up. The Lord is gonna break up everything. From all camps to all scoffers, everybody's gonna be put in the fire, you know, of affliction, man. That's why if you've been building up your faith, you've been building up that sternness and that, that true, sincere, austere, faith and boldness in the Lord, man, you're gonna be okay. Because you standing against powers that be that want you killed so that they can continue on with their wickedness, man. Let's get this real quick. This is Psalms. This is verse 9. This is Psalm chapter 9. Verse 17, it says, "Therefore the Lord shall have no pity in their young men, neither shall he have pity on their fatherless and their widows, for everyone is a hypocrite and an evildoer, and everyone speaketh folly. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is still stretched out." Verse 18, "For wickedness burneth as a fire, as the fire." He's gonna melt a lot of jakes, man. It shall devour the briars and the thorns. It shall kindle in the thickets of the forest, and it shall mount up like the lifting of smoke. Verse 19, though through the wrath of the Lord of hosts is the land darkened, and the people shall be as fuel of the fire, and no man shall spare his brother. Verse 20, it says, and he, this is all self-explanatory. Verse 20, and he shall snatch the right hand and the hungry, and he shall eat. It says, and he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the own flesh of his own arms. And this is coming. This is what's coming, man. You know, this has actually happened in history. You know, through the tribes, man. Cannibalism. Verse 21, Manasseh, Ephraim, Manasseh, and they together shall be against Judah. For all this anger, for all his anger is not turned away, but the hand is still stretched out. And see, even though you have a lot of our people waking up, you still have a massive amounts of our people which still have that tribalism, that tribalism mentality, that tribal mentality, you know. And that's going to be weeded out. Even if you have just a speck of that shit, the Lord is going to weed that shit out of you, man, through fire, you know. So it's time to put off that you know, that macho mentality, man. Because at the end of the day, you know, we ain't shit in this world, man. You're trying to convince yourself that you're in this world to, you know, just be famous or rich or want to, you know, be a pastor and all. This is really for you Christian pastors, man. You know, because you come against us the most. You other religious leaders, right? You religious leaders, you know, you Christian pastors, you Catholics. You know, money ain't gonna save you, man. And all these different enterprises is rooted in money. You see that in a lot of Israelites, man. They took the bag. You know, there's no other way to explain. You took the bag. I mean, you know, you're not the gold and silver is not gonna save you. None of it. Let's get this real quick before we end it. You know, because you know, it's just making a point, man. Because really, this world is going to change. It's going to get more wicked, and the wicked is going to show you who he is in order to continue in his world, so that he can continue his ways, right? Because he's already shown you who he is. You're going to have to take the chip. And to them, it's like, oh, you don't want to be a part of our club. You don't want to take the chip. Then find your own way to live, right? And you're going to have to put on faith. And eventually, you know, you're not going to have protection. You know, some of us going to get martyred. All of that. It's going to all the acts. We are literally in the acts, man. We're heading towards the acts, and during the time of the Roman Empire. Let's get this real quick. This is Ezekiel. This is Ezekiel 7:19. They shall cast their silver. They shall cast their silver in the streets, and their gold shall be removed. Their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of the Lord. They shall not satisfy their souls. It says neither fill their bowels, because it is a stumbling block for their iniquity. And let's get that word for iniquity, man. You know, gold and silver is a stumbling block for a lot of people. You know, they trying to, you know, it's crazy, man. We get to the end, you trying to, you know, solidify yourself through gold and silver. You're not gonna. There's nothing that you're gonna be able to do. Just living in righteousness and, you know, putting on that true cup of suffering, man. Having integrity of your souls, right? Whether you're doing the right thing or you're doing the wrong thing, even behind closed doors, man. Yeah, all of that matters, man. The Lord is watching all of that. That's what the Lord is looking for, man. A broken and contrite spirit, because having integrity in this world is going to cause you naturally to have a broken and contrite spirit. Because it's hard to do the motherfucking right thing around these niggas, man. But anyways, for iniquity, slock it for that. It says perversity. It says depravity, iniquity, guilt, or punishment of iniquity, right? It says consequence of or punishment for iniquity. So perversity. Let's get that word for perversity. And then we're going to look up depravity. Deliberate desire to behave in an unreasonable or unacceptable way. Contrariness, waywardness, difficultness, right? Stubbornness, willfulness, irregularity, irrationality, illogically, you know, it's a new word. Obduracy. And I'm gonna look up that word real quick, see what that means. Then I'm gonna end it. Obduracy. These words I don't use in my language. Obduracy. The equality of being extremely stubborn or inflexible, refusing to change one's mind, opinion, or course of action. It says, despite reason or persuasion or moral influence. And that's a lot of you Christians, man. No matter what we bring out, by what we tell you, not just you Christians, man, all you other, religious organizations, right? You agents out there, there's some of you fucking leaders are supposed to be leaders of the people. Some of you out there too, you know. A lot of you women is really rooted in a lot of you women. Because who does this devil use the most? He uses the so-called black woman. The elder apostle Rakaz right on that. The woman is definitely the devil's play bitch, man. And a lot of Jake is going to get snared by women. And I could already see it, man. So I'm just gonna leave that right there, man. It is what it is. Continue for your crown. These devils are being called out. They're being called out on all the wicked enterprises, all their wickedness. And now AI is even turning against them. So now you can use AI to turn against these devils. You see? So at the end of the day, the Lord has made us. He's snared this devils in ways he's not going to be able to get out of it. Eventually, he's going to make us an offender of the word. But stand tall in your faith. My name is Rapash Shabab. I'm in that right there. Call Halal Yamla Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai Bahashem Rakaha Kodash. And double honors to the elders and apostles who do rule well, taught us his truth, and peace and salutation to hopefully like Shalom.